All right, hi everybody. Today or tonight, I want to talk to you about biodiversity and extinction. Most of us know what it means when we say extinction. We're talking about species that are gone forever. For example, we talk about the dinosaurs. We say dinosaurs are extinct. I also want to point out a word similar to extinction that we might see in many of the readings that we'll do. It's called extirpated, and the word extirpated is very much like extinction, but it means more like a local extinction as we use it in biodiversity. Pictured here is E.O. Wilson. E.O. Wilson is a famous biologist who studied ants. He passed away just a few years ago. He was a professor at Harvard for many years. E.O. Wilson, who coined the term biodiversity in the 1980s, suggested that extinction rates are about 1,000 times greater than before humans were present. Nobody really knows how many species there are, so that makes knowing that answer a little bit difficult. But conservation scientists pretty much agree that the rate of extinction is definitely higher than it's ever been in the past. But again, we don't really know how many species there are on the planet. In the 1980s, a guy by the name of Norman Myers raised an alarm call on the extinction rate in a book he wrote called The Sinking Ark. And in that book, he suggested there's probably around 10 million species. And at that time, he was studying tropical rainforests. And everybody kind of laughed at him at that point in the 1980s because they thought there's no way there could be that many species. People didn't believe that there could be 10 million species on the planet. Later, another biologist by the name of Terry Irwin, who is an entomologist, and entomologist is somebody that studies insects, and he studied insects in the Peruvian rainforest, and based on his studies, he estimated there's somewhere between 30 and 60 million species on the planet. And more recent studies in the 90s and 2000s and even now suggest it could be anywhere between 30 to 60 all the way up to maybe 100 million species. And that puts Norman Myers' estimate that everyone laughed at 10 million to be very, very low. So we're going to look at extinction through geological time. So what you see here is the geological time scale. And if you've had other classes with me, this might make you a little bit nervous, but we're going to do this in a much more simplistic way. So I want you to know the four major eras, which are the Precambrian, the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. But we're going to focus mostly on the last three. And I'll refer to the Paleozoic as the age of fishes and amphibians. And that's going to go from about 225 million to around 500 million years ago. Fishes is the correct term when you're talking about multiple species. The Mesozoic era can be referred to as the age of reptiles and dinosaurs, and that began around 225 million years ago and ended about 65 million years ago. And you most likely have heard of one of the periods within the Mesozoic era, the Jurassic period, because of the movie Jurassic Park, which is about dinosaurs. So we are currently living in the Cenozoic, which began 65 million years ago and is currently ongoing now. And we often will refer to this as the era or the age of mammals. The Cenozoic, interestingly, the word "cen" means recent, and the word "zo" means animal. So Cenozoic means basically recent animal. Fossils in the early Cenozoic resemble animals we see today. Mastodons, for example, resemble elephants. Saber-toothed tigers resemble some of the large cats. All right, now, if you look at the line between the Paleozoic and the Mesozoic, we call that line the Permian-Triassic boundary. That line occurred 225 million years ago, and that is associated with what we call a mass extinction event. The reason there are different eras is because there are major extinction events that we find in the fossil record. And the Permian-Triassic boundary was a major extinction event where most of the species on the planet went extinct. There's another line between the Mesozoic and Cenozoic that we call the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary. That boundary occurred about 65 million years ago, and it was associated with the extinction of the dinosaurs. That was another huge mass extinction, and that was somewhere around maybe 50% of all the species on the planet. So there's two mass extinction events that I want you to be able to put a name to: the Permian-Triassic boundary at 225 million years ago, and the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary 65 million years ago. We can look at an estimated extinction rate. And again, nobody really knows exactly how many species there are, so we don't have a complete understanding of that. But it's estimated that from the 1600s to the 1900s, in that time period, we were losing around one species about every 4 years. In the 1950s, we were losing about one species going extinct per year. In around 1982, it was about one species per day. And in 1992 is about one species per hour. And fairly recently, in 2020, and actually before that and up till now, it's been more like 4 species going extinct per hour as estimates. If you take a look at the human population growth and compare that with extinction rates, you can see a J-shaped curve of population growth. And as the population of humans took off, that is associated with a J-shaped curve of also species extinction. And remember, a J-shaped curve represents exponential growth for both the human population as well as the extinction rate, meaning that they are correlated. Okay, so on this table, they show here 5 mass extinction events, and you should know these from memory. The Cretaceous Tertiary extinction about 65 million years ago, and the Permian-Triassic extinction about 225 million years ago. And many people believe that we are actually living in what they call the 6th mass extinction now. So there have been 5 mass extinctions for sure, and a lot of people have pointed out that where we are right now is really the 6th mass extinction. So many people believe we're living in that now. This differs, though, from all other mass extinction events in the past because it is human-caused, most likely. Whereas the 5 previous mass extinctions are associated with things like asteroids hitting the planet, climate change, and other geological events. All right, if you look at the number of species threatened with extinction today, and you go down and look at mammals on this list, 27% of mammal species are threatened with extinction right now. 27%. Primates, and humans, by the way, are a type of primate. 54% of primates are threatened with extinction today. If you have a look at birds, specifically penguins, 61% of penguin species are threatened with extinction. So we're experiencing right now, we are living during the 6th mass extinction, an extinction that is pretty much human caused and human induced. Extinction is both deterministic and stochastic. What I want to briefly talk about here is the difference between deterministic and stochastic extinction. Deterministic extinction are cause and effect type of scenarios. They're kind of easy to predict. So if you have vultures, for example, and vultures eat carrion, they eat dead things. If you remove all the sources of carrion from a turkey vulture habitat, you could predict probably pretty accurately that turkey vulture would cease to live there in that area in a short period of time. But a lot of extinction events are stochastic or uncertain, and they're much harder to predict and they're much more complex. Stochastic events can be due to genetic uncertainty, and we'll be talking about inbreeding in populations. Sometimes populations get small to a point where there's not only not so many individuals, but they're all genetically similar, so you lose the variation that normally would save species. So even if you have enough of them, you don't have enough genetic diversity maybe left. We also have demographic uncertainty in random events such as fire or floods that affect the survival or the reproductive of individuals. Many organisms are experiencing environmental uncertainties in terms of climate change, and we're going to talk a little bit about those in this course. Other catastrophic events, fire, flood, and droughts, and how those can be difficult to predict on the different stochastic measurements of what can end up happening.